I wanna try and take in all the highs, embrace them for more than a moment's time. I want you, please don't move when I push you away. I know I contradict myself some days, but will you ride the lows with me?
Welcome to Mental Health News Radio. I am your host, Kristen Sunanta Walker. Our goal is to help discussions about mental health be a regular part of your daily life, no different than discussions about physical health. Mental illness can be a topic of discussion under the umbrella of mental health, along with so many other topics. This show is the original program on mentalhealthnewsradionetwork.com. Our network of shows are played in over 180 countries and cover more topics under that umbrella than you can possibly imagine. We were talking about mental health long before it became cool and popular to talk about, and thank goodness it has become so popular. We have incredible guests, advocates, patients, experts, people. Thank you for tuning in and enjoy our intro music, a song named Lows, written by Aubrey Toon. You can find her music at www.aubreytoone.com.
With me, will you ride the lows with me? When I'm down, my vision gets blurry.
Hey everyone, Kristen Walker here with Mental Health News Radio, and I'm here with my friend Cody Gauthier. Wait, did I say that wrong again? Cody.
You got it.
I did. Yes. Okay. This is a thing with me with names. And I know you. How long have we been in orbit? Since before COVID, right?
Right before COVID, we're in the same orbit around 2018.
Oh my gosh, you were young. You were like a youngster. I mean, you're still a youngster, but not as much of one. But the thing that I wanted to talk with you about today, because I saw your TikTok, which we're going to tell everybody where that is and where they can find it on the show at the end. But you do these incredibly sensitive and real, just day in the life of what you do. You're a mental health counselor and you're also a somatics practitioner. So I saw one where you were talking about what it's like to have a patient grow right before your eyes and then decide that it's time for them to take therapy less, twice a month instead, and what that whole experience is about. And I thought, in all the years I've done this podcast, I've never talked about that particular experience from the side of the therapist. So anyway, I wanted to invite you on to talk about that piece, and so my listeners can see what it means.
Perfect. Yeah. Thanks for having me on. And we have known each other for a while, and I just started making TikToks, and you've been helping me a great deal in finding my voice and finding new ways to engage people and to just have fun with that space.
Yeah.
That the video that you're talking about is one where I was hopefully helping people understand what it's like being on the other side in the therapist chair, witnessing someone move through these loose stages of therapeutic change.
Yeah.
And becoming more embodied in their healing and as well as starting to really integrate some of the skills that we sometimes work on for months, years, because it's one thing to understand something cognitively, but it's another thing to really embody what it is that you're trying to change in your life, and then actually experiencing it out in the world, and then coming back to therapy and then reporting that to someone like me.
All your cringe moments.
Yeah.
She's trying to integrate something new. Yeah.
Well, that too. I mean, there's times where, oftentimes when we make a change, it feels weird. Right. And so what therapy becomes really valuable when we can say, something new happened and it felt terrible and not like I imagined, or it felt awkward and uncomfortable, and there's collateral. Now there's consequences, right? If we set boundaries, or if it's the first time that we're really starting to express ourselves in relationships, it can bring on conflict. It can bring on like dysregulation and destabilization, and people come back into session initially feeling like, oh my gosh, like this is why I never did this in the first place. And then
And you're like, please keep going.
yeah, and then I'm like, well, I'm trying my best to not, I think that's the art of therapy, is being able to leave enough space for the client to go through that, and then holding that space for them, and then while at the same time saying like, well, this is part of what the growth is, and just leaving enough room for that, all of that new material to be there, because that ends up becoming its own stage, is saying like, wow, like how do I deal with the criticism, or like the sort of like the
Pushback.
backwind, the
Yeah.
pushback within
Yeah.
ourselves, and that becomes its own thing, right? Because then you can't put the cork back on the on the bottle,
You just got some more room inside yourself. You're not gonna like give that up. Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, so that's sort of, yeah, that's sort of what I was naming, and then depending on where you want to go with this, I think one of the, oh, if you're in my world, which is sort of like the private practice space, there also is a responsibility and sort of an integrity piece around like, well, a client's been here for a while and they're in maintenance now, and their goals, they've hit all their goals, the ones that you write down at the beginning of when you meet one another. And how do we start to talk about, gently sort of saying goodbye, and that attachment piece that I think becomes really important in therapy. And then what does it mean for when a client has feelings around that, but also wanting to be aware, like for some of us, that you know they have self-determination, like they have agency, they have choices, they still want to pay, they still want to come, they still want to do all the things, and also like, well, I think we've reached our, you know a space where
We've
you could
reached
just fly off.
homeostasis. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and that's hard too, because I admittedly, and I think I said this in the TikTok, I'm like, I love some of my clients. I like do not want them to go.
You're
I
like, I
love all
want
my.
to see them every week. I love their problems. Yeah.
It's fine, yeah. So that's hard too. That's especially hard for me, but it's hard for them too, obviously.
Yeah, I can see that. Absolutely. I've had a couple of therapists where I'm like, I mean, I became friends with a couple of them, which I know is a big no-no, but we did. Don't comment. Oh man, they couldn't help it. They were so yummy to be around. And what more accepting space. I mean, when
Mhm.
I worked in electronic health records and I'd go into mental health
Mhm.
offices, I would walk into the therapist room to check their computer, whatever, to make sure it's connecting to the EHR. And I'd be like, God, so comfortable in this room. What is it about? Oh, it's because a therapist works here. I see the couch and I'm like, I think I'm going to lay down. And so that process of taking the essence of what you're doing with this person and then making it a goodbye or a less appointment, is that something that you bring up when you tell it's time, or do you let them figure that out for themselves?
Well, it's interesting. Like, I think depending on the setting you're in, we do it differently, right? If you're in a setting where there's time limited, then the goodbye can be more ceremonial, in that you build towards it together. It becomes actually a lot more collaborative. I actually really enjoyed that when I was working for hospital settings, or when I worked in intensive outpatients. You would really build towards the ending. And there would be the celebration of goals hit, or just income. There might be some incompleteness too, and you name that and you say, well, that's for you in your next journey when they go find their next therapist or whatever. But there was, we would do these symbolic things where I have like over there, and on the other side of my office, there's these like rocks that have like little, isms on it, like that's courage and bravery or whatever. And we'd like bring things in to to sort of shape the nature of like how beautiful the relationship was. Now, in private practice where I am now, there's a different pacing. So it's like we're at weekly, we're doing our thing, and then we're meeting goals, and then it's like, oh, okay, how do we have this attachment conversation, right? Where I'm the one who's holding and tracking where we are, and now I'm looking to collaborate and have like a real, I think, human relational conversation about what would it be like for you when I say that maybe we're at a place where biweekly is possible, and then you deal with what shows up.
Oh,
And that
that's
actually
so
be
nice to do it that way. Oh,
so you leave a lot of room for someone to be like, oh, it's scary, I don't know, maybe there's a part of me that fears that if I go to biweekly, then things will fall apart, and that becomes its own work, and I think that's really special.
do you think it's because you have built this sort of structure for them in the space when they come to see you, and that kind of holds them until their next appointment?
I think so. I think it's something we kind of create together. So I think I are the session room, even if it's on Zoom or if it's in my office, becomes an anchoring place, right? Where they're like, especially when clients are in maintenance, it's like I know everything about their lives or most things about their lives. So nothing's off limits. Like once we've air quotes hit the target and we've done some of the, if it's trauma work, which is a lot of what I do, it's like once there's a lot of healing that's gone on, now it's just like clients will come in and one week they'll be venting about this or that or the other thing, and it just becomes this anchoring space that feels just as that feels just as good as it did when it started. It's just
Right.
not taking the same form. So it's and that's a really fun place to be in therapy.
This is where I know that I would never be a good therapist, and I'm telling you this so you can comment on it, because I would be like, we have talked about this for weeks. Let's move on. Not work. I mean, the amount of patience that you have with people when you're like, okay, we're circling this again. Okay, okay. I mean,
Well, what's interesting though is that some clients will because it's not as if they're like complaining or whatever, but in that stage where I think a lot of the work is complete, air quotes, like what we're talking about here, a client will come in and they'll say, "Oh, you remember my friend blah blah." And I'm like, "Oh my God, yeah." And then the session becomes about this interpersonal conflict that they had. So basically this client's telling me a story, and it's a new story, but about the same person. And I'm holding it, and I'm just following along, and it actually becomes entertaining for me. And then at the end, and this is where it's really interesting, is that part of the reason why I know we're kind of in a new place is because like friends in that situation would kind of just listen and give feedback and just shoot the shit. At the end, I'll do the same thing, but then at the end, the client will tell me how it is that they coped in a healthy way. And then
and
they'll get
then
to the
you know
end.
they're good.
And then I'm like,
Yeah,
oh yeah. So then I just reflect back to them like, yep. So you did exactly what I imagined you'd do. And they're like, oh yeah. And then and then we're done. And then and then it just keeps doing that.
that's awesome. That's awesome. I want to
Yeah.
I want to pivot
Yeah. Yeah.
to you being, in this time, which we're not going to get into what this time is about, but
Mm,
we'll steer clear from there. But the amount of stress that people are under right now, but especially men,
yeah.
that are going through, I can't speak to it because I'm not a male, but the yummy question for you is, how did you become this sensitive, self-aware human being that happens to be male? Not that men can't be sensitive and self-aware,
Yeah.
but how did the arc of you
Mm.
formulate into being this person that would want to do this, and the things that you talk about on TikTok? I mean, you don't hold anything back about yourself either.
Yeah, I like I the quick answer, or I guess the honest answer is that I spent plenty of years not being that. Like there was like I think we used we've used together the word like masking or
Yeah.
the veneer or whatever. There was this part of me that really wanted to promote vulnerability, authenticity, uh, being truthful to myself and all that. And, as someone who's in recovery from an eating disorder, that needed to be part of my system because the underbelly was a lot worse and a lot more, I think, difficult to be with. So only parts of me got to show up, and they were the parts that people liked. And so there within me, there was always that. Like you met me in 2018, where I was just starting to get into the healing. Um,
That's
but
right. I remember that. Yeah. Yeah.
it was right at the beginning. And and but I think I've always had that sensitivity to me. I was always within the jock groups, or I don't want to like put stereotypes on anything, but it's like I've always been a part of those, and I think there's parts of me that are like competitive and more like traditional male stuff, like
Right.
guy stuff, and in this field, being me now, being just authentic, I get to sort of pick and choose where, like, authentically how I show up in these spaces. And it's also, I feel like I'm veering off a little bit, but like I I grew up having a lot of friends, and this was unconscious, but I had a lot of my best friends growing up were girls because I felt
I
safer.
knew
It was
it.
just yeah, and I was raised by I mean, my dad had to work a lot, so I was raised by a lot of women. Like I had aunts that were just flocking all over me, and my mom and then I had a ton of female, um, just like female energy in friends and cousins and uh, guidance counselors, and you just get used to it.
Like this is how men should talk, and this is how they really shouldn't talk.
And getting honest feedback. Like I think I was the only guy in my very jockey friend group who had deep enough relationships with the girls where they could give me feedback if I was being a dick. And s-
Really?
and which was really interesting because no one else got it, and I was just like, okay, that I offended everybody. My bad.
Yeah, but you know why they told you and nobody else? Because you're safe to tell.
I'll take that in now.
I mean,
At the
I
time,
mean,
I
from
probably
the
didn't get it.
female perspective, you were a safe person to tell. There's a lot of, emotional reservoir within you. And so people, women especially, are like, oh, okay. He's not going to try to fix me or manage me or edit me.
Yeah,
I can
yeah.
just, you know, be myself. And that's, I don't know how to teach that to men. It's not my job to do that. That's, I think, a job for men.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And on the flip side, a lot of the therapy that I'm doing now, like literally now in 2026, right, is working on how to be more assertive, working on how to ask for what I want, to sort of be more boundaried, to be more um okay with and tolerate more conflict, like healthy conflict in a way where I'm getting a need met. So like a lot of my work is stepping into that power a little bit more in ways that are healthy, and like and that's been cool too. I realize I do not have I don't have that muscle of being able to ask for what I want
Oh,
in ways that are
so
like
hard.
healthy.
So freaking hard. And when you start doing it, at least for me, it was like it came out like I said,
Hmm.
for a while.
Me too with my partner, my girlfriend. She has tolerated me in this my evolution. And one of the things that she said is she's like, I'm not liking this, because I'll be like, she'll ask me if I want to go do something, and I'm like, no, no. And then I'm like thinking to myself, oh my God, am I being too like, so that'll come up. I'm like, I don't usually do this. And she's like, what? Because she's used to me being like, I don't know. And she hates that too. So I'm like, no.
What about a thing with ambiguity? Because
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
working with someone, well, not working. We're going to do a show together, me and a
Hmm.
male,
Hmm.
and talking about, because we have really deep conversations.
Hmm.
And, I mean, you and I can have really deep conversations too, but
Hmm.
we want to kind of show that dynamic of that healthy relational space when you've got two deep people that are of opposite gender, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So for you, when you're kind of wobbling between integration and you're living with your partner and she's going through this with you, how much of that, like when you're in it with her, are you
Hmm.
thinking to yourself ever, oh, this is like a patient. I need to remember this data because this might
Hmm.
help someone that I'm working with.
No.
Okay.
No, not in the moment. Not what tends to happen, man, that's a hard question, because what tends to happen is I will, well, two things, I guess. When I'm in the moment, I actually think about my own therapy. I'll think about, okay, what within me is showing up, all the stuff that we hope our clients will do, where I'm like, okay, like if I can slow this down just like a millisecond, like can I connect to what's happening here? And it doesn't mean I'm not still going to be in the argument. Like sometimes I'm in like the conflict or whatever it is that's happening, and I get to the end, but by the end I'm like, okay, I'm not going to dissociate and pull away. I'm not going to be resentful, because even though we got through the whole thing, I kind of get what happened. And if I take 20 minutes and go and say, you know what, oops, here's my part, like that's the work that I'm trying to do. But with what I've realized is that because I'm seeing more couples, and I'm just using this as an example, or just
Yeah.
like when I see men, I'll see men in relationships. I do often, and maybe this is wisdom too. Like if 24-year-old me who met you wouldn't have had this, but 31-year-old me, almost 32-year-old me is starting to develop enough wisdom to be able to self-disclose in sessions in ways that actually support um, interpersonal relationships and how to move through them in a way that I think clients will say, "Oh, he's joining me. He like that makes sense. Like I'm not alone in this," but not saying like, "Let me make it about me." And I didn't have that before. I just was too young in my field.
I know you're still forming. And that's what I mean by wanting to go and do this. It's not a profession that you do because you're going to get rich. You know what I mean?
No, not really.
So you really have to be committed to the journey of people and
Mhm.
helping them through it and having the patience, having the room inside yourself to be that while you're working on your own stuff. So, how do you handle it when you are working with someone and it is like right up against a wound of yours?
Well, typically, like, because I train other therapists on how to work with these types of experiences, and it's probably because I got a lot of training from because I was acting out a lot. Like my when I was younger, like I'd get triggered in session, and my instinct, a lot of therapists' instinct when they're triggered in session, when it's rubbing up against the wound, is to try to control the session. That's it. Like if you could ask 20 different therapists the same question, and they'll say, if they know themselves and they're tracking themselves in session, they'll say, when I get triggered and when I'm hurt in session, I will try to manage the session more, control the session more. I won't let it breathe. I will interrupt. I will be more direct. I will be more judgmental and pointed. And then if I'm really not tracking myself and I'm really not um, getting good supervision or therapy, I will justify my behavior afterwards. I'll say that's what they needed. I'm just a direct therapist.
Ooh.
I was telling a hard truth, and like when I see online people who are like, sometimes I have to tell my clients hard truths. I'm like, hopefully in the right context, because that to me just sounds like countertransference. Because I did
That's
it a lot.
that's got to be really weird with I mean the space has changed so much. When I started doing the podcasting back in 2012 maybe it was 2014 anyway, forever ago when they were still like podcasts, what's that won't go anywhere, and that'll go the way of the dodo bird, right? Okay.
Mhm.
It was mental health and addiction were not in the same
I know.
land. I would be at a conference and I'd say, "Hey, head of recovery arc services, come let me interview." What you're a mental health person. Why would I talk to you? That is completely changed. Also, the
Mhm.
disclosure, I think what bringing addiction where it should be under the mental health umbrella, I think what happened is people started to realize the correlation between the two. It does, belong in that space, and that you can't go through an addiction process without having the therapy right alongside it. So,
Yeah. Yeah, of course. I mean, I wasn't in the field in the 2010s, but I do remember when I first started interning, it was at an addiction treatment center in a little town in New Hampshire called the Phoenix House, and their primary was relapse prevention, recovery skills, things like that, which were fine, but it was incomplete. Like there was not enough attention paid to historical trauma, these like attachment wounds, these big sequences in development that lead to addiction being a necessary adaptation to being in really
exactly.
unsafe
Oh,
conditions.
I love how
That's
you
it.
just said that. A necessary adaptation. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. The whole
Yeah.
idea of like, you failed in addiction treatment because one 30-day program didn't do it for you. The whole idea of that, I hope, I'm not in it in that deep, you are because you work within it, but has that language changed where you stop shaming people because they go to treatment several times?
I think, man, I hope so. In the places I work with, that I get to consult with and work with, it has, I think the language has changed. And I was just having this conversation with a friend of mine this morning over coffee. Like, there are new modalities that we're learning in therapy now, like very, I think, very important, like transformative modalities that to work with addiction, that take the onus off of the patient, right, or the client, and it being a lot less, excuse me, like self-hating or self-judgment,
Good.
or putting the onus, like the blame, on the client. And it's about sort of, again, understanding those necessary adaptations and saying, wait, what may have happened in your life that may have led to the conditions in which this was possible? And then how do we deal with that while also giving you the skills so that you can have enough, like you said, availability within yourself to do that deeper work? And like, so it is two-pronged now. And I feel like it's only getting better. Like, it's only getting better in
Good.
terms of, like, on this end, like I'm learning new shit that I'm like, oh, that's going to be great for these guys.
You're like, yes. I think too, bringing addiction under that umbrella made it because addiction is where you brought in people who were peer counselors, who were like,
Correct.
well, and people who were, I'm in active recovery and I am also working as a counselor. And so they would share themselves. And I know there was bleed through in some ways that got uncomfortable, but it
Mhm.
also took away oh, I'm on a clipboard right here and I'm just writing your problems and not really interacting. It got rid of that whole separation
Mhm.
so that, okay, a therapist can talk about their life experience. It doesn't have to be like that one step, removed.
That's true. And also, like, and this is maybe a different conversation, but like, that there is a sacredness to the recovery communities. Like, we therapists, I think, historically have been very judgmental towards the 12 steps and AA and NA, and those like sacred spaces where there's community, the recovery community, because it's peer support. And your sponsor can just be Joe Schmo with 12 months, 12, 11 months sober, whatever. but
Right.
but then on the flip side, we and I'm putting myself in that place too, we have no grounds to stand on in what it might be like for someone who has been a heroin addict for 10 years, and
Right.
the tremendous amount of pain and suffering they've experienced in the world and in their communities. But you know who does? Like, the guys that are in the rooms reading the big book
Exactly.
at like 7 a.m. on a Tuesday. Like, that's
Like with a cigarette and
community.
a coffee. Come on
Exactly, like that those are your people. So I think there's both are great. Separating them and honoring both for what they are
in.
is
Exactly.
hopefully the future. Because I think especially around here where I live in California, I do think there's a little bit of they're too separate, and I think there's too much judgment going both ways. But I might just be projecting. I don't feel that within myself. Like, the recovery community is cool with me, I'm cool with them, we're good. Like,
Right. Tell me about the somatic piece because and
yeah,
I want to get back to ambiguity with
yeah,
men, especially.
yeah.
So we can't forget, I'm going to write a big old A. And the person that I'm going to send this video to is going to be like, God blessed, why? Because this is a thing with this person. But let's go first. Let's go to the somatic piece. Tell everybody what that is
Sure.
and how you use that in therapy because it's a body experience. So
Yeah.
how do you let go? I need you to feel that in your left toe.
That so I'm gonna try my best. I'll preface by saying that there's a difference between somatic techniques and somatic practices, which is, I think, just the general idea of, can you sense can you sense what's showing up in your body in terms of, like, the tension or the stress that you might feel in
Okay.
any area? And does it feel strong, or does it feel, or is there a quality to it, or whatever? And then, the somatic practices like deep breathing, the Windhoff breathing, the punch a pillow, like those types of things, or, and there's all this different,
Wind
those
hop
are,
breathing.
yeah, it's just the four in, taking
Okay. Okay.
four in, hold, and then four out, or like the physiological sigh, where you're taking, like a big breath and then a big out breath.
Okay.
Yeah. And so there's all these different, those are skills. And then what I do, what I've got specialized training in is, and I'll try to be as, whatever, concise as I can, because it is sort of like, it does feel a little bit like magic or like hocus pocus or whatever.
Let's go full woo. Let's go for the woo. Okay.
Full woo would be just if you could imagine,
A mystical
some
dragon. No.
yeah. So someone who's experienced trauma in any form at one point, or maybe unfortunately for some people, in many points, there's a natural threat response that we go through, right? If a tiger tried to jump through the window and try to tackle me, I would orient to the threat. I'd get ready to defend myself. I would decide whether or not I'd run to the door, which is not near me, or I'm in the corner of the office, so I'd have to fight. And so or I would just completely freeze and fawn, and I'd curl into myself, and I'd hope that the tiger thinks I'm dead and leaves. So there's this.
You basically porcupine yourself, cover your middle.
Exactly. It's like, and hope to God that the cat, and which often actually in the wild, that is true. Like there is like animals will do that. They'll just, they play dead. Right.
Yeah.
So and then
I know how to do that real well.
And a lot of people do. A lot of people have learned how to do that. And so then what happens is after the tiger leaves and I've, slowly, I'll be frozen for a while, sometimes for, in this case, it'd be for a few minutes, maybe up to 20 minutes. And then hypothetically, I'd start to unthaw. And in the unthawing, I'd start to be able to regain my mobility again. And then what would happen is there'd be this huge discharge. So I'd have all this pent up energy that had nowhere else to go because it was being so constricted that it would kind of come out the extremities. I'd start to shake. I might start to cry. Yeah, I said honestly, there'd be all kinds of excretion, and seriously.
I know it's true though. Believe me, I know. I had an experience like this with my son. I won't go into the details, but anyway, that makes it sound grotesque. It wasn't like that at all. I just got in a very scared. I was so petrified. There might have been gummies involved. I'm not going to go further. But anyway, I got so scared that I was like, we need to go over there. And my son was like, Mom, please, dear God, put your arms down. Keep them right by your sides because wow.
So there you go. That is part of the responses that show up when you're activated like that.
Yeah.
So essentially, that's all. It's really training therapists to be able to see very precisely where people got stuck, because the difference between us and animals is that we because we have a prefrontal cortex, if you were to scare me in public, right, I wouldn't be able to take myself through the full response of being able to be like, oh, I'm okay, and like shake it all off. I have to keep up to for appearances, so I'm going to act like you didn't even scare me, or I might punch you, or I might like whatever, and because I do that, I have to just move on with my life. We have a lot of people who are in that state of like, we're functioning, but we have all of this trapped traumatic material that has nowhere else to go. And it leads to all these symptoms, and it leads to anxiety, and it leads to syndromes, and it leads to headaches and compromised states. And that's what we're trained to figure out and help people go back into those moments, work through what needed to happen and what didn't get to happen. And then we'll see we see clients really have some big discharges where it's like years of traumatic, of pent up stress moves through finally.
All right. I'm going to circle back. Our last thing is going to be about ambiguity. So when someone is stuck in some way or another, especially with men in particular, because they're oriented towards, women get to talk and share, and that's expected. And, men don't have that unless they hang out with a bunch of women like you did. So when you're working with a patient and you can tell that they are really trying, right, as a male to say exactly what is going on, and they're just circling it and they're circling it and they're throwing it out there, but it's not really touching the wound. How do you kind of guide them to at least getting near the origin? Is that where the somatic piece comes in?
Yeah, I think so. Men, I don't want to stereotype too much, but men tend to be intellectualizers, right? Like we want to understand and fix and control, I think that's a lot of like the manosphere sort of like self-help in that regard. It's like the
Yeah.
stoic, it's like, we can think our feelings, and if we know, then we can control, then we can change, and that's wonderful. And right, and like in terms of getting closer to the wound, it's being able to build a relationship with that part of them that feels the need to do that, and and extend it some acknowledgement and some compassion, and to give it a little bit of space to say, oh, this, you've been here since I was like 10. Oh, okay, you've learned that that this needs to be this active, and that this needs to be this dominant, and you don't know any other way of doing it. Oh, okay, and then that's the starting point, and then from there I can go into the body.
All right. So when you're working with a male who, the fact that, men, even now, it's no big deal to go to therapy,
Yeah, I know.
which is
It's been nice.
fantastic.
Good for my
Because that was
practice.
yeah, exactly. It was a whole different thing. So are you finding that the ones that will come to see you also have relationships with women that are pretty, where they can express themselves and so on? Do you see a correlation or no?
No, no, not really. I see men who feel, I think, often, I don't, again, this is going to feel too stereotypical, but is what shows up in my room is that they often feel incompetent, ineffective, underappreciated, um, kind of like castrated in some ways,
Yeah.
like emotionally, and like they feel that um, that I think you use the word ambivalent. Like they're ambivalent about what their role is in a relationship. Like it's not like 1950s traditional, like men are the providers and women, whatever, are the
Right.
homemakers. It's like men are supposed to. Men, there's an increased pressure for men to be able to express themselves more clearly, and to have more emotional intelligence. And I think men are failing, and
Mm,
and women unintentionally, I don't think this is purposeful at all, are want higher standards for their males to be more deep and dense in like how they, and they want to have that like more
connection.
emotionally intentional relationship. And if men can't get there, they start to get really resentful, and they start to turn inward, and they start to dissociate, and use substances and cheat. And those are the men I end up seeing that are just
Okay.
feeling like dog shit. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, even showing up says a lot because,
That's right. Yeah, that's right. And I'll give them credit for showing up. Oftentimes, in my experience with men, like the men I'm thinking about on my caseload, their wives kind of send them. It's right. Their wives or girlfriends will say, "My gosh, this is a tipping point. I don't know what to do with you," and they'll
yeah.
say, "Fine, I'll just go to therapy," and that's,
Right.
yeah.
If I don't have to listen to you because I had my therapy, we're good. Yeah, because I'm not giving women a free pass at all. I'm just really, I hope that you'll come and be a part of this show that we're creating,
Hmm.
because that would be amazing. Just to have these kind of conversations about what is it like for men? What is it like for women? What the heck is going on now where there's so much anger and women are like, I'm going to be single forever. Ah! Like that's
Yeah.
for real. I went through that for, gosh, 3 years. I've been in that state of, I'm done for the rest of my life. I do not need a man. I'm
Mhm.
good. And now I'm like, it'd be nice, but it would have to be really different.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, well, but to your point though, Kristen, like I think what you're naming for yourself is exactly what women feel empowered to say and do. And then that, I think there's this bi-directional thing happening where it's like women are like able to stand in their worth and say, like, I can be alone, and it's my choice to want a man at who
Right.
who can be XYZ. And then men maybe at times don't feel like they can stack up, or I think the more immature, what I see oftentimes, and I felt this too in my past, was like, oh, why do they need so much? And then I get all like I get all insecure about that.
Yeah. And women are like, I got a vibrator and popcorn. I don't need a man.
For us people who, and maybe it's just me who's chronically online, that is the exact, this is it. What we just did is exactly
That's why we got to do this show. We're going to do it on Substack instead of YouTube and stuff and put it on TikTok, but I really want to do this and have people come on to further the conversation because I don't think, I mean, how do we get through to men that are really closed off? And I
Mhm.
said, well, they aren't going to get through listening to me.
Yeah.
I mean, they'll think she's a cool chick, she's very open, whatever I usually get, but really the message has to come from other men that are
Yeah.
sensitive, open, will talk about and show you can be this way. You can be a reservoir of emotion. You're not going to drown in that. And a lot of really, really sensitive men, especially autistic men that get
Mhm.
diagnosed late and the special combo of like OCD or ADHD in there, um, you have no idea how sensitive. I mean, you do, but
Yeah. Yeah.
society has no idea how absolutely profoundly sensitive these men are and that they have this whole interior world.
Mhm.
They just keep it on lockdown.
Yeah, 1,000%. You said it perfectly.
Yeah,
And also, like, I like a world where men and women don't have to live within these like binary standards. Like
exactly.
I have parts of me that I am so proud of that are very like more male, masculine dominant that I appreciate and I will embody in different ways when I need to. And then I get to have the sensitive features too. And those get to live together rather than trying to protect one because that's who we are.
Yeah. Oh, that
Exactly.
looks like constipation of some kind. Anyway, moving on.
But it's like we can be all of it. Like we don't need to pick a lane. And I think that's the problem with like society is that there's this sense that we're like losing something and it's like we're
No.
not. We're just adding something.
Yeah, more like you can come out of your interior world. There are women and men that would be grateful to know, oh, I can talk like this in front
Mhm.
of other people. So, well,
Yeah.
good. I'm so glad. Tell everyone if they wanted to find you, where would they find more about you?
Well,
Except
more
what's on
legit.
your sweatshirt right there.
Oh yeah, I'm at the South. I am on the board of the South Bay Eating Disorder Coalition. And
Nice.
so if you're in the South Bay and you want to know more about that, that is something. Um, I You can find me on TikTok. I think we'll have to post the link, but I think it's just my
Yeah.
name,
Yeah,
Cody Gauthier.
I'll
And
put it in the notes.
and then you can find my practice. We're in the South Bay. Cody Gauthier Therapy um, is my website, and hopefully I'll continue to be doing stuff online and hopefully adding to the discourse.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you, Cody. I love you and I appreciate you so much. And I
Thank you
love
so much.
your
This was so fun.
posts. Your love, the
Thank you.
things that you put out there. You're doing like amazing stuff. That's why I'm like, you don't need to find a lane. You are the lane, you know?
I'm working on it. I'm having more fun, and part of having more fun has just been taking the pressure off myself to know what I want, what I need to do every day. It's like I'm just going to post about the things that I care about, and it's working.
Right. I write like the wind. I don't even think about who's going to read it or not. I just put it out there and
Well, it works. Your stuff works. I have found myself coming back to your stuff in the morning. I
oh,
do I do reading in the morning, and so your posts just show up now because you're on my friends feed. So you are doing some really powerful stuff.
thank you. Thank you. Well, I finally found my thing. So.
Yeah.
All
Oh
right.
yeah.
Well, listeners, thank you for tuning in. We will have Cody on again and stay tuned for a new show. We aren't sure what the heck we're going to call this. It's just being formulated right now, but we will have Cody on as a guest. And thanks for coming on Mental Health News Radio.